Jedi Fallen Order and Battlefront 2 have both been very successful games for EA, and it seems they're very aware of this. Today we have some great news for the future of Star Wars games. It looks like we're going to see a lot more Star Wars games in the next few years, going into development and being released. And also an indication that EA will continue to create Star Wars games well into the future, perhaps even after their deal with Disney to make exclusive AAA titles using the Star Wars license goes up for renewal in 2023, which I know some of you might not be happy about, but more Star Wars sounds pretty good to me. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. So just the other day, EA held what they called a fireside chat for investors, where EA executives spoke about the company's plans for the future of Star Wars gaming. And GameSpot wrote an article about the presentation, reporting on all the Star Wars talk that took place. EA's CEO Andrew Wilson talked about where he hopes the company will take Star Wars in the future. He said, "We have a tremendous relationship with Disney. We have a tremendous relationship with Lucas. We have a long-standing relationship with them, going all the way back to Star Wars The Old Republic that we launched in 2011, which is in fact EA's longest supported Star Wars title." And good news for Battlefront fans, it was revealed during this webinar that Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 combined have sold around 35 million copies, making these games hugely successful. To give you a bit more insight, Pandemic Studios' Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 from 2004 and 2005, the LucasArts titles, had sold around 10 million copies combined by 2007 when the games were a few years old. And I'm sure this number has increased since then, but would still be nowhere near the combined 35 million copies sold of EA's Battlefronts. And yes, obviously these are different times, the world is more connected online, there are more people playing games than ever, but these numbers are quite impressive. A lot of copies sold, which I honestly think is good news for the future of the Battlefront series. Obviously there's no word yet of new Battlefronts in development, but the number of copies sold here would indicate that they would be wanting to capitalize on the gigantic audience of the Battlefront series. Lots of people love these games, so why wouldn't they keep making more and more? EA's next Star Wars game release is Star Wars Squadrons, releasing on October 2nd of this year, and already EA are anticipating this game is going to appeal to a smaller audience than, say, a Battlefront or a Jedi Fallen Order. EA CFO Blake Jorgensen said the company is not planning to disclose its sales projections for this title. They don't want to say how many copies they think it will sell, probably because they have no idea. EA have never released a game like this, not in recent years anyway, and an all-out dedicated Starfighter game definitely has a smaller target audience than one of their larger games. Jedi Fallen Order has sold over 10 million copies, and that game is considered hugely successful, appealing to a broader Star Wars audience. So I think Squadrons will definitely be somewhere between the 4 to 6, maybe 8 million mark. And Andrew Wilson went on to say that even if Squadrons doesn't sell as well as EA's other Star Wars games, he's happy about the breadth of games EA has created from its partnership with Disney and Lucasfilm. I still think they could definitely improve on the amount of Star Wars games and the different styles of Star Wars games they're making, which seems to be the future plans with doubling down on Star Wars. We've had success in first-person shooters, in RPGs, in action-adventure, in MMORPGs, in mobile, and I believe we're going to have success with Squadrons as well. Interesting comments made from Andrew Wilson. I'm sure so many fans are just waiting to see more exploration in video games in the Star Wars universe. I've seen so many comments recently asking for a role-playing style open-world Star Wars game. We know Jedi Fallen Order had such a positive community response that I'm sure any style of action-adventure game would be welcome. And no particular mention of single-player or online titles here, but what Wilson said next is why I'm so excited for the future of Star Wars games. He said, "We're going to double down on that partnership. Disney continues to be very, very committed to the IP and to the canon." So to me, unpacking this, it seems Disney are really interested in working with EA in the future on multiple more Star Wars titles that we don't even know about yet. Perhaps some games that are in the early stages of development, having concepts created, but it also looks like EA will continue their partnership with Disney and Lucasfilm, holding on to the Star Wars license until even after 2023. EA previously signed a 10-year 10-year deal with Lucasfilm back in 2013 to make exclusive Star Wars games, but this excludes the LEGO Star Wars license, which is why the LEGO games are made by TT Games and published by Warner Brothers. Wilson added, "We've got the combination of great IP, great development expertise and experience and success from us across genres, across platforms, across business models. And we've got new generations coming to the IP all the time. So our expectation is we think there continues to be a really strong opportunity in and around that relationship and that IP going forward." This sounds like they're very passionate about keeping the Star Wars license and continuing to make Star Wars games. And it seems Disney are happy with EA's work on Star Wars. Blake Jorgensen went on to say that EA is in a rare position where it's been allowed to create entirely new characters and content for the Star Wars universe, thanks to its strong creative partnership with Disney. For example, Jedi Fallen Order features a number of new characters that are canon, like Cal, Sierra, while Squadrons will take players to places in the Star Wars galaxy that have never been seen before. We've already seen the new planets unveiled for Star Wars Squadrons. And it seems EA have long-term plans to broaden their audience. Lots of EA games were recently published on Steam. EA notoriously used to exclusively publish their games to Origin, the launcher that's owned by EA. But times are changing. And something else I think EA are probably going to come under criticism for in the incoming years. During this same webinar, Andrew Wilson commented on how EA has potential plans to get into the betting market, including sports betting and other forms of gambling. I personally feel like this could only lead to more criticism of the company, but it seems they want to keep their options open for the future. These are on a longer-term time horizon, but we have a number of projects incubating inside the company right now as we think about that 5-year plus time horizon. So, based on the number of copies both Battlefront 1 and 2 sold, and also Jedi Fallen Order, I think it's fair to say that EA has multiple new Star Wars projects currently in the early stages of development that we don't know about just yet, especially seeing as though they're saying they're going to double down. They're publicly announcing that on Star Wars. Currently, we know Respawn Entertainment are working on Jedi Fallen Order 2, the sequel to this game, and we also know that Respawn has a dedicated Star Wars division. One part of Respawn works on Apex Legends, another part works on Star Wars, and then another part works on their Medal of Honor VR game. Respawn obviously have a long history of working on first-person shooter titles. We've got Apex Legends, before that we had Titanfall 1 and 2, and lots of the developers who work at Respawn previously worked at Infinity Ward on the Call of Duty games before Vince Zampella, Respawn CEO, left Infinity Ward to found Respawn. It would be very interesting if Respawn were secretly working on a Star Wars first-person shooter title. This may seem unlikely, but it wouldn't surprise me with Respawn's new experience on the Star Wars license. And then you've got BioWare Studios. They created Star Wars The Old Republic, a game that is still hugely popular today. After a quick Google search, it seems there are over 6 million players in total, with an active daily player base of over 100,000. It's not too bad, but the game is starting to feel old and dated, so could BioWare be working on the next title in the Old Republic series? Another interesting idea that I think would be well received. Like I said before, it'd be amazing to see an open world Star Wars game. Unfortunately, over the past few years, EA has been notorious for cancelling several Star Wars games. One off the top of my head was Project Ragtag, the bounty hunter open world style game, which looked pretty cool. This one was being developed by Visceral Studios, which was shut down a few years ago. It'll be interesting to see what DICE are working on after the next Battlefield game releases, whether they'll be working on another Battlefront or something similar. And who knows, maybe a couple of EA's smaller studios could pop up with a smaller Star Wars title. That's what's happening now with Star Wars Squadrons. We knew this game was in development, although didn't really know what it was, apart from the fact it was going to be a smaller game. And Motive Studios are one of EA's newer studios. So, do you think this is good news for the future of Star Wars titles? Are you happy with EA keeping the Star Wars license? And what's one Star Wars game you'd want to see made? Let me know in the comments. And for more on Star Wars Squadrons, you can watch this video here or go check out my video about Star Wars Racer. This game was the first Star Wars game I ever played back in 1999, and it just released on the PlayStation Store. Amazing game. And you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and join my Discord for much more Star Wars gaming news. Come join my community, come chat. And thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.
Stay bombastic.